I didn't just lose my husband, I lost my sister. And the baby that should have been a blessing became the proof of their betrayal. That's not something you ever think you'll say out loud. Even now, the words feel too heavy to carry. But they're my reality. And if I don't tell this story, it's going to rot me from the inside out. So, let's start here. My name's Shanice. I'm 30 years old, and for the past 12 months I thought I was building a life with the man I loved and the family I trusted more than anything. My husband, let's just call him Tom. My sister, let's call her Wanda. Two people who were supposed to be my safe places. Two people who promised they'd always have my back. Instead, they had each other. If you're already thinking, how could you not see it? Let me stop you. Because I've been asking myself that same question every single day since it all came out. I've ripped apart every memory, every conversation, every moment, searching for the clues I should have caught. And yes, now that I know, the signs feel obvious. But when you love people, when you trust them with your whole heart, you don't look for betrayal. You look for comfort, you look for reassurance. And that's what I thought I had. The truth is, I'm still sitting in the wreckage. The photos from our wedding are still in frames on my bookshelf because I haven't had the courage to take them down. My sister's name is still saved in my phone under best friend, even though I haven't spoken to her in months. And every time I hear a baby cry in the distance, I feel my chest cave in. Not because I don't love children, but because for me, a baby isn't innocence anymore. It's evidence. I never imagined my life would unravel like this. I thought betrayal came from strangers, from people outside the circle. I never thought the knife would come from the two people closest to me, the ones I would have defended against anyone else. But here I am, 30 years old, sitting in the aftermath of a story people whisper about but don't understand, because from the outside, it sounds impossible, like something out of a bad soap opera. A sister, a husband, a baby, and me, left in the middle, with nothing but the truth and 1,000 questions I'll never get answered. This isn't a story about revenge. It isn't even a story about anger, though God knows I've felt it. This is about what happens when loyalty is weaponized, when love is twisted into a cover for lies, when family, the very thing you think will protect you, becomes the weapon that destroys you. I'll tell you everything. How Tom fooled me, how Wanda betrayed me, how the cracks started small, then spread until my whole world collapsed, and how the moment I should have been celebrating a new life turned into the moment I realized mine would never be the same. But before I get there, you need to understand where this all started. Because betrayal doesn't arrive fully formed. It builds in shadows, in secrets, in the moments you excuse because you love too much to question. And that's where my story begins. People love to say, the signs were there. But I wasn't blind. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't that wife who combed through call logs or picked fights over nothing. The truth? I trusted the wrong people with my whole heart, and that's exactly how they got away with it. If anything, I trusted too much. Because the two people who betrayed me weren't strangers. They weren't coworkers I barely knew or friends I was always suspicious of. They were my husband and my sister. The two people I thought I could trust blindly because they were supposed to be my safe places. Tom wasn't just my partner, he was the man I built a life around. He knew my routines, my flaws, my dreams, and he made me feel like I was enough. And Wanda, Wanda wasn't just my sister. She was my best friend. We grew up sharing clothes, sharing secrets, sneaking out of the house together. She was the one I called first when anything happened, good or bad. She knew me in a way nobody else ever could. So when people ask why I didn't notice, why I didn't question it sooner, the answer is simple. Because why would I? Tom and Wanda didn't have chemistry. At least, not the kind that makes you suspicious. They were family. And when family spends time together, you don't analyze it like you would with strangers. You don't watch for signs. You don't wonder what's going on behind closed doors. You trust. Because that's what family is supposed to be. A circle of safety where betrayal doesn't even cross your mind. Looking back now, I can pick out moments that feel different. Times when Wanda stayed over a little too often, times when Tom brushed off questions with answers that seemed perfectly logical then, but suspicious now. But in the moment, I never saw it. I never wanted to see it. Because Wanda was the person I leaned on the most. She was the one who stood by me through every breakup, every heartbreak, every disappointment. She was there when I met Tom, and she was the first one to say, "He's good for you. Don't let him go." Imagine hearing that from your sister, the person you trust the most in the world. It was like double validation. Her approval meant everything to me. And Tom? He wasn't secretive in the way cheaters usually are. He wasn't sloppy. He wasn't careless. He played the part of the loyal husband so well that when he smiled at me, I believed every word he said. He didn't make me suspicious. He made me feel safe. So no, I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't searching for problems that weren't there. I was living my life with the two people I thought I could count on most. And I know how it sounds now. I know it sounds like I should have been more careful, more suspicious, more guarded. But you'd have trusted them too. You'd have believed your husband when he said he loved you. You'd have believed your sister when she hugged you and said she had your back. Because betrayal like this doesn't happen in the daylight. It doesn't happen where you can see it coming. It happens in the blind spots, those places you never think to look because you believe you're safe. And that's exactly where they hid. To understand why this broke me so completely, you have to know what came before. Because my life with Tom and Wanda wasn't messy or suspicious or filled with warning signs. It looked perfect. It felt perfect. And that's why the betrayal cut so deep. Because it came from the people I thought I could trust the most. I met Tom at a friend's birthday party. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic. He wasn't the loudest man in the room, but when he spoke to me, it was like the noise around us fell away. He asked questions, real ones, about my job, about what I loved, about my plans for the future. He didn't just nod along waiting for his turn to talk. He listened. And after years of half-hearted dating, of men who treated me like a placeholder, that felt different. We started slowly. Coffee dates, late-night walks, hours spent talking about nothing and everything. He was steady, reliable. He texted when he said he would, showed up on time, followed through on promises. He wasn't flashy, but he was consistent. And consistency, to me, was everything. When I introduced him to Wanda a few months later, I remember holding my breath. My sister's opinion always mattered more than anyone else's. She'd been my best friend since childhood. We grew up sharing a bedroom, whispering secrets under the covers when we were supposed to be asleep. She was the one who covered for me when I snuck out as a teenager, the one who cried with me after my first heartbreak. Wanda wasn't just my sister, she was my mirror. If she liked someone, I trusted it. If she didn't, I questioned everything. So when she met Tom, I watched her reaction more closely than I watched his. And she smiled. She approved. She teased me afterward, saying, "Don't screw this one up, Em. He's a good one." That was it. Her blessing. And with that, Tom became more than my boyfriend. He became part of the family. The three of us built something that felt seamless. Tom came to Sunday dinners at my parents' house, and Wanda was always there too. We laughed, we shared stories, we clinked glasses across the table like we were in some perfect commercial for family life. Vacations, holidays, birthdays, it all blended together, and never once did I question it. Why would I? Tom slipped so easily into the role of husband material that it was almost too smooth. He opened doors for me, remembered little details, even learned how to make my mom's favorite pie just to impress her. When he proposed, it didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like the natural next step. And Wanda? She stood by my side as maid of honor. She held my dress when I walked. She fixed my makeup when I cried at the vows. In every photo, she's right there next to me, smiling like my happiness was hers too. Looking back, those photos are the hardest to look at. Because in them, I see two people who were supposed to protect me. Two people who were supposed to be my anchor. And instead, they were already pulling me toward the storm. But at the time, it felt unshakable. A strong marriage. An unbreakable sisterhood. My parents used to say they felt lucky. Lucky their daughters were so close. Lucky their son-in-law fit in like he'd always been there. And I believed them. I thought I was lucky too. That's what makes betrayal like this unbearable. It wasn't just my husband I lost. It wasn't just my sister. It was the foundation of everything I thought my life was built on. It was my family, my trust, my certainty that love and blood meant safety. And when all of that crumbles at once, it doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your entire world. It didn't happen all at once. Betrayal never does. It starts in shadows, in moments small enough to dismiss, in excuses you tell yourself, because the alternative is unthinkable. For me, it started with Wanda showing up more often. At first, it didn't seem strange. She'd always been close to me, and after Tom and I got married, she said she didn't want to lose our bond just because my life was settling down. She'd come over after work, claiming she didn't feel like being alone. Sometimes she'd bring takeout and say, "I figured we could all hang out together." Other times, she'd text me that she needed advice about a guy she was seeing, or about her job, or about nothing at all. I welcomed it. I thought it was sweet that she wanted to be around us, that she felt safe enough to come to our house when she needed comfort. But after a while, I noticed she came over even when I wasn't there. I'd get home from running errands and find her on the couch, laughing at something Tom said. Once, I walked in to see her in the kitchen, helping him chop vegetables for dinner like they'd been doing it forever. When I asked, Tom brushed it off. "She just needed someone to talk to," he'd say. "You know how close you two are. I didn't want her to feel like she couldn't come by if you weren't here." And because it was Wanda, my sister, I didn't push. But then there were the glances. Quick, fleeting things that barely registered at first. A look passed between them during a joke I wasn't in on. A moment of eye contact that lingered a second too long. Private laughter that didn't include me. I'd catch it and feel my stomach twist, but then I'd shake it off. "Don't be paranoid," I'd scold myself. "They're family. That's all this is." The truth is, I trusted Wanda more than I trusted myself. If she was smiling, if she was comfortable, then I told myself everything was fine. Sisters don't cross that line. Husbands don't either. Not the good ones. Not the ones who promise forever. So I explained it away. When Tom started suggesting that maybe we should invite Wanda to join us on weekend plans, I told myself he was just being thoughtful. When Wanda offered to help him with a project in the garage, I told myself it was nice of her to lend a hand. When I walked into the living room one evening and found them sitting a little too close on the couch, heads bent together over something on his phone, I told myself I was imagining things. Because what was the alternative? The alternative was betrayal. And betrayal wasn't possible. Not from them. So every time that little voice inside me whispered that something felt off, I smothered it. I told myself, "You're tired, you're stressed, you're overthinking." I reminded myself of every year Wanda had been my rock, of every promise Tom had made, of every reason I had to believe they would never hurt me. And I believed it. I believed it so much that I laughed at my own suspicion. I told myself I was lucky, that most women would kill to have a husband who got along so well with their sister. I even bragged about it once to a friend. It's great. Wanda and Tom are like best friends too. We're one big team. I had no idea that team didn't include me anymore. Looking back, the signs weren't subtle. They were neon. But when the people betraying you are the ones you love most, denial is easier than truth. And I chose denial, over and over, until the truth finally tore its way out. The first cracks were small, but eventually they widened into canyons I couldn't ignore. It started with Wanda pulling away from me. The same sister who used to call me every day suddenly went quiet. Messages unanswered. Plans canceled. When we did see each other, she barely met my eyes. She'd sit at the edge of the couch, scrolling her phone, and every laugh that used to come so easily was gone. At first, I thought she was depressed. I asked if she was okay, if something had happened at work, if there was a guy she wasn't telling me about. She'd shake her head and say, "I'm fine, just tired." But I knew her too well. Wanda wasn't fine. At the same time, Tom started changing too. He stayed at the office later, came home distracted. His phone, once casually tossed onto the kitchen counter, was now glued to him. I'd catch him stepping outside to take calls, lowering his voice like he didn't want me to hear. When I asked what was going on, he sighed like I was nagging. "Shanice, it's work. I've told you 100 times. Stop overthinking everything." The gaslighting was subtle at first. Little comments meant to make me doubt myself. "You're imagining things. You're being dramatic. Not everything's a conspiracy." And when I tried to talk to Wanda about it, about Tom acting distant, about how weird things felt lately, she did the same thing. "You're stressed," she said once, brushing me off. "You've always been a little anxious. Don't let your mind run away with you." Hearing that from her cut deeper than Tom's dismissal ever could. Because if even Wanda thought I was imagining things, maybe I was. But then came the twist I couldn't explain away. One evening my mom called. Her voice was hesitant, careful, the way she gets when she doesn't want to set me off. "Honey, have you spoken to Wanda lately?" "Not really. Why?" There was a pause. "She's pregnant." The word slammed into me. Pregnant. I sat there in silence, heart pounding. Pregnant? My baby sister? The one who had always told me she wasn't ready for kids, who'd said she wanted to travel and focus on her career before settling down. When I confronted Wanda, she looked cornered. Her eyes darted everywhere but mine. "Yeah," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant." I asked her who the father was. She froze. I don't want to talk about it." That was all she gave me. Over and over. "I don't want to talk about it." Shock doesn't even begin to describe what I felt. My mind raced through possibilities. Old boyfriends, flings she never told me about, maybe even someone from work. But a darker thought clawed its way in, one I didn't want to face. Tom. I shoved it down as soon as it surfaced. No, not possible. Not him, not her, not them. But once the thought existed, it wouldn't leave. Every late night, every quiet laugh between them, every moment I'd brushed aside as family closeness came rushing back like evidence in a trial I didn't want to hold. I confronted Tom first. "Did you know Wanda was pregnant?" His face hardened instantly. "Why are you asking me that?" "Because you've been acting weird and she won't say who the father is." He shook his head, exasperated. "Shanice, you sound insane. Why would you even think that has anything to do with me? She's your sister. Support her instead of turning it into some twisted story." When I pressed, his voice sharpened. "You need to stop this before you ruin your relationship with her. She needs you, and you're making it all about yourself." Later, I tried again with Wanda. I begged her to tell me the truth. She cried, but the words she gave me were the same. "You're imagining things. Stop. You're making something out of nothing." And that's when I felt myself split in two. One part of me clung desperately to denial, to the belief that my husband and my sister would never cross that line, that this was just a mess, but not that kind of mess. The other part knew in the pit of my stomach, in the ache that wouldn't let me sleep, that the betrayal was bigger than anything I could imagine. But until I had proof, I told myself the lie. Don't be paranoid, Shanice. They're family, because the truth was too big to bear. And I wasn't ready to watch my entire world collapse. After I learned about Wanda's pregnancy, the silence in my family became its own weapon. I tried to talk to my mom again, desperate to make sense of it. "Don't you think it's strange?" I asked. "She won't say who the father is. Doesn't that bother you?" My mom's face pinched, like she was ashamed for me even bringing it up. "Shanice, she's scared. She made a mistake. The last thing she needs is her sister accusing her. Be supportive, not suspicious." Supportive, not suspicious. The words stung because they implied I was the problem, that my worry wasn't love. It was jealousy. And Tom was quick to reinforce that idea. One night, after I pressed him again, he snapped. "You're obsessed with this. You sound jealous, Shanice. Do you even hear yourself? You're acting unstable. Wanda needs compassion, and all you're doing is making it harder for her." Jealous. Unstable. Those words echoed until they felt like my own. Maybe he was right. Maybe grief over the life I thought I was building had twisted me. Maybe I was paranoid, seeing shadows where there weren't any. But then Wanda said something that shattered me even more. I cornered her one afternoon, begged her to just tell me the truth. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes and whispered, "I made a mistake, okay? A huge mistake. But it doesn't concern you. Didn't concern me. How could it not concern me when she was my sister, when she was carrying a child into the world and hiding everything about it? How could it not concern me when my husband's behavior had shifted in perfect sync with hers? But every time I asked for details, she dodged. Every time I tried to connect the dots, someone told me to stop. So I started investigating in secret. I replayed old conversations in my mind. Nights when Tom had come home late and said he was stuck in meetings. Weekends when Wanda had canceled plans with me because she was busy. I laid them side by side, and suddenly the patterns began to emerge. His meetings matched her disappearances. Her excuses lined up with his alibis. It was like pulling threads from a sweater. The more I tugged, the more the whole thing unraveled. I found receipts in Tom's jacket pocket from a restaurant he'd claimed he hadn't been to in months. The same week Wanda said she was too tired to come over for dinner. I remembered times Tom had snapped at me for asking where he'd been, only for Wanda to cancel last minute with no explanation. Piece by piece, the coincidences piled up until they no longer felt like coincidences at all. And yet, part of me still clung to denial. Because if I admitted what my gut was screaming, then my world wasn't just shaky, it was destroyed. It meant my marriage was a lie. It meant my sisterhood was a lie. It meant I was living in a house built on betrayal, raising toasts at dinners where the joke was always on me. So I kept my discoveries to myself, swallowing them like poison. Outwardly, I pretended everything was fine. Inwardly, I spiraled. I couldn't sleep. I replayed every moment of my marriage and every memory of my sister until they blurred into one sickening loop. Was I crazy, or was I finally seeing clearly? That was the question that haunted me, night after night. And deep down, I already knew the answer. When the day finally came, I wasn't in the hospital waiting room. I wasn't pacing the halls or holding her hand. By then, Wanda and I were barely speaking, and the few words we did exchange were tight, fragile things, like we were both clinging to a lie that was fraying with every passing week. But news travels fast in families. Within hours, my phone buzzed with the announcement. She's here, healthy, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. I stared at the photo my mom forwarded. Tiny fists, pink skin, wrapped in a hospital blanket. A baby that should have been a symbol of joy. And then I saw it. The nose, the jawline, the eyes. I'd traced those features 1,000 times in the man who lay beside me at night. I didn't need a test. I didn't need anyone to tell me. The baby looked like Tom. I dropped the phone. My hands shook. My heart thundered so loud, I thought I might pass out. Because in that instant, every denial I had clung to crumbled. Every excuse I'd made for them. Every time I told myself, don't be paranoid. It all collapsed under the weight of a newborn's face. Still, part of me screamed for proof. I needed it to be undeniable, so no one could ever call me crazy again. So I got it. A few weeks later, when the family had settled into the haze of newborn life, I convinced Wanda to let me help with some paperwork. She was exhausted, her guard down, and there, tucked in with hospital discharge papers, was a DNA form. Not because she wanted it, but because hospitals automatically run certain checks when paternity is questioned. I held the page in my hands, the words blurring through my tears. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Father, Tom. My husband. I couldn't breathe. My legs gave out, and I had to sit down before I fainted. It was one thing to suspect, one thing to see it in the baby's face, but to hold it in black and white, medical proof that my husband had fathered my sister's child, it broke me in a way I can't describe. That night, I confronted Wanda. She cried at first, tried to deflect, tried to insist it just happened once, that it was a mistake, but I pushed. I begged. I demanded. And finally, she snapped. Fine, she said, her voice sharp, her tears drying into anger. It wasn't just once. It wasn't a mistake. We've been together for months. Months. The room spun. I gripped the table just to steady myself. She kept talking, like the words had been bottled up too long to hold back. It started before I even knew I was pregnant. He said he loved you, but he wasn't happy. He came to me because I understood him. We didn't plan this, but it wasn't an accident either. Every sentence was another knife. because this wasn't some drunken slip. It wasn't one bad decision made in the heat of the moment. This was deliberate, sustained. A relationship lived in the shadows while I played the fool in the daylight. I asked her one last question, my voice barely a whisper. "Did you ever think about me?" She looked away, didn't answer. And that silence was louder than any confession. When I confronted Tom, he didn't even fight. He just sat there, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow, and said, "I never wanted you to find out this way. This way." As if the betrayal itself was inevitable, like the only tragedy was me knowing. I wanted him to beg, to fall to his knees and tell me it was a mistake, that he'd lost his mind, that he'd do anything to fix it. But he didn't. He didn't fight for me. He didn't fight for us. Because the truth was, he'd already chosen. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just betrayed, I was replaced. Replaced as a wife, replaced as a sister, replaced in my own family by the two people I trusted most. It wasn't only the end of my marriage. It wasn't only the end of my relationship with Wanda. It was the end of the version of me who believed love and loyalty were unshakable. All that was left was the rubble. And me, standing in it, with nothing but the truth and the unbearable weight of knowing that the life I thought I had was never real to begin with. There was no dramatic ending, no screaming fight in the street, no slamming doors or shattered glass. When the truth finally stood in front of me, undeniable and cruel, I didn't rage. I didn't beg. I didn't ask them to choose me. I chose myself. I packed a bag that night and walked out of the house that had once felt like home. I left behind the wedding photos, the furniture we picked together, the life I thought we were building. I didn't slam the door. I closed it quietly. Because some endings don't deserve fireworks. Some endings are better written in silence. And in that silence, I found my strength. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my life. My family was fractured beyond repair. My mom begged me to forgive. My dad refused to take sides. Some relatives whispered that I was being dramatic, that these things happen. Others avoided me altogether, as if betrayal were contagious. But I knew one thing. I couldn't stay. Not in that marriage, not in that family dynamic, not in the same room with people who looked me in the eyes while tearing my world apart behind my back. So I started over. I found a small apartment, empty at first, just a mattress on the floor, a chipped coffee mug, and my clothes folded in laundry baskets. But it was mine, and for the first time in months, I could breathe without feeling like the walls were closing in on me. I started therapy. At first, I sat in that chair, arms crossed, convinced there was nothing left to fix. But slowly, with each session, I peeled back the layers. I talked about the little girl who grew up sharing secrets with her sister. I talked about the woman who believed in vows, who thought forever meant something. I talked about the shame of ignoring my instincts, the anger of being gaslit, the grief of losing not just one relationship, but two. And piece by piece, I rebuilt. I learned that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the people who swore they'd protect you. Sometimes it comes from the ones who share your blood. And sometimes it comes from the vows you thought were forever. But betrayal doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do after. Do you stay in the rubble, waiting for someone to apologize, waiting for someone to see your worth? Or do you stand up, dust yourself off, and walk into a new life that's yours alone? I chose to walk. I won't pretend it's easy. There are still days when a baby's cry makes my chest tighten, when I see a couple holding hands and feel that familiar sting of what I lost. There are still nights when I wake up angry, replaying every conversation, every lie, every time I silenced my instincts because I wanted to believe in the people I loved. But there are also mornings now where the sun comes through my window and I feel free. There are afternoons when I laugh with friends and realize my voice doesn't tremble anymore. There are moments when I catch my reflection and think, you survived this. You're stronger now. Tom and Wanda can have each other. They can build whatever story they need to tell themselves to sleep at night. I don't care anymore, because their choices don't define me. Mine do. And I've chosen peace over chaos, truth over lies, myself over both of them. So no, I didn't get revenge. I didn't destroy them. I didn't need to. The weight of their choices will follow them forever. My only job now is to live. And I will. Because I'd rather be alone in truth than live in a family built on lies.